Alright, 5th grade, so it's time to add some overpainting. At this point, your entire picture should be dry, and you pretty much have paint everywhere at this point. Your background, your middle ground, and your foreground are all painted, but now it's time to add those little details. So again, this picture is going to wind up being a picture of the natural bridge in Virginia, so transformed environment. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to be adding some texture into these trees. So I'm actually going to be using a sponge, and I'm going to be mixing two colors together on my sponge. So I'm going to take some green, and I'm going to cover my sponge, rotating it as I do that. And I'm going to take some yellow, not as much, and I'm going to kind of mix it in there. I'm just going to kind of do it on one corner, because I'm going to show where the highlight is on the trees, and I'm always going to keep this side towards where the sun would be. So for me, the sun's coming from this direction. So I'm going to hold it, and I'm going to kind of add some texture into it. I can kind of highlight the edge of the trees. Okay. So I'm using a lighter color to kind of lighten up certain areas. All right. So I think I'm actually going to leave it there. I like what it is. Remember always to wash these out in your water bucket and put them back so everybody else can use them. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start to build in my bridge. So when I'm building in my bridge, there's two parts to it. There's the underneath where people can actually walk through, which is going to be darker. And then there's the rest of the bridge that you can actually see, which is going to be lighter. So what I can actually do when this whole thing is dry, which mine isn't right now, but you can actually kind of draw in with your chalk where it's going to go. So for me, it goes kind of down. And then if you ever get a piece of paintbrush stuck, just pull it off and throw it out. And then I'm going to kind of build this up like this. And that's going to be my under part. And then the natural bridge kind of goes up and out. It's got a wiggly edge on top, and it comes back down over here and ends right over here. Okay, and I got some more. So you really have to make sure that everything is dry, otherwise you're gonna get your chalk all full of paint. All right, so just drawing in some basic stuff, and then there's some more tree coverage up here. Alright, so again, I'm going to start with what's farthest away first, and then work to what's closest. So I'm going to start under here because that's farthest away. So that's going to be me mixing a tone again, but my tone's going to be pretty heavy on the black because it's underneath something. There's a shadow on it. There's a tiny bit of white still in it because it's a rock face. A little bit more black. Make sure you're washing your paintbrush in between colors because it's not nice to mix colors so that no one else can use them. And then I'm going to paint this directly in. And I'm not even going to worry about adding a texture to it yet. I'm just going to pretty much outline and fill it in. And when you're painting over something, it's really important to make sure that it's dry, because watch. What's going to happen is you can... So I have a little bit of my green showing through here because my tree line wasn't totally dry. I'm going to go all the way to the edge, so it looks like it's actually going behind that. Alright, and now I can actually start to add textures. So if I want to come back with a little bit of brown and do some stippling, and do some wet on wet stippling. Good. And then maybe, since it's showing really heavily, I can actually mix some black and some brown together so it doesn't show as much. Maybe I don't want it to show that clearly. So you always have to put down a base color before you're putting down anything else. So always have a base color before you're using any painting techniques. Okay, and then I will build on top of that. So now I'm just going to make a lighter tone. So that same color that I had before to paint underneath of the bridge, I'm just going to add more white to it. So I can keep using those same colors to make sure that there's consistency in my picture. See how it's consistent? It kind of looks like the same thing. Alright, and I'm going to make sure I cover up all of that blue behind it because I don't want it to look like my rock is see-through. And then to have a shadow on that edge so I can add some more of my shade, show the distinction between it, and then I can blend those two colors out. Alright, so I think you guys have the basic understanding that you need to outline everything first, fill it in, and then start to add more and more stuff on. Again, your entire background, middle ground, and foreground has to be painted in before you add any other final details. Alright guys, you have any other questions, let me know.